Hello, DeFi Alpha listeners. My name is Seb. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of our guild, Gerry. How are you today, Gerry?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Seb. Thanks for having me. It's a fun experience doing this on video now, so I've got to make sure that I'm not picking my nose anymore.
Yeah, me too. Me too. No more picking the nose. I'll keep my hands below.
Yes, excellent.
Well, look, it's pretty obvious, I think, what we're going to be talking about for anyone that regularly listens to this podcast. You know, we cover all things, and we will cover other DeFi protocols and other games in the future. But right now, Aavegotchi is ready to launch. So let's dive in. It's too exciting. I just can't contain myself right now. Bit of a schoolboy.
Yeah. There was an awful lot of alpha dropped in over the last hangout, and there's certainly a lot of excitement now that it's only a few days away. Really, we're very close, so things are picking up. I've noticed that the floor prices are picking up. The price of Ghost is picking up, and yeah, everyone who's already in the ecosystem is getting really excited. And there was just so much stuff in the last hangout to go through. So generated a few dot points to talk about here. So yeah, just to reiterate, the alpha release is on the 31st of March, so just around the corner. But it's also worth noting that the lending contracts go live a few days prior. So it's a really good opportunity for everyone to understand how they're all going to work, because it is a whole new thing. So I sort of can't wait to see how that's going to play out, and make sure that I've left one of my Gotchis, not up for rent. So I've got something to play with as soon as the Gotchiverse goes live.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, fantastic. And do you know how the Gotchi Vault will be dealing with the lending side of things yet?
Not so much yet. I mean, I think that's probably why they're putting the contracts out in the open for a few days prior, so we can get an understanding as a user, but also I'm guessing so the Vault can work out how they can interact with them. I'm sure they've probably already seen them. They've been up on GitHub for quite some time already, but it's more the actual user interface that is sort of going to be new to everybody. So might give them time to build out a UI. Really just depends how quickly they can move on some of this stuff. So yeah, it is going to be really interesting, and it's a great chance for the guilds to start sort of pushing out contracts. You might be able to start going, okay, guys, get in these first few days and sign up, and get yourself sorted out and whitelisted for certain gotchis. So it's good that they've got a few days lead in to sort all those details out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be a limited release. So, we're not going to have 10,000 gotchis running around there. So we'll work out exactly how we can get our gotchis in closer to the time. Do we have any more information on like how many gotchis can actually enter and have a bit of a play?
Last I'd heard was they were going to sort of leave it, I think, gated to 1,000 at one time. So it was going to be more like a one in, one out type style thing. So you could have more people lined up in a waiting room. Now that was 2 or 3 weeks ago they mentioned that. So whether that's changed or not, I'm not entirely sure. But I would assume that's still the case. They want to be able to scale out the infrastructure without it crashing on day one, because you've suddenly got 17,000 people running around there. They haven't tested it to that scale before. So I think it is going to be gated, but that kind of, in a way, that could drive hype if there actually is the demand there and you have more than 1,000 people waiting to go. People will be itching to get in there. So they're dubbing the launch of the Gotchiverse a play drop. So there's a lot of airdrops in crypto. It's a bit of a hypey theme at the moment, especially with the big ApeCoin launch during last week. But they're trying to sort of generate some interest with what they're calling a play drop, which basically means it's an airdrop of all the Alchemica tokens in that first month of the Gotchiverse to try and entice people to get in there and get active. So I think it's really clever marketing, and they've hinted that it's going to be a substantial amount in that first month, because obviously they're trying to get as many people through the door and involved as possible. And the way that it's going to work is that every few minutes, sort of in random spots around the map, Alchemica is just going to appear, and you'll be able to run around sort of Pac-Man style to pick it up. And it'll be available in 3 different sizes of 1, 5, and 25 of Alchemica. So, if you can find yourself a 25 sized bit of kek, that's going to be pretty valuable early on. So the other really interesting part of that, Seb, is that you'll be able to harvest them within the game and take them to what they call the Vortex, which is this little withdrawal station within the game itself. So you can interact with it on chain and then sort of withdraw it to your wallet. I'm not sure if there's going to be a pop-up menu to just do that anywhere, or whether you have to take it to these Vortex withdrawal stations to collect it or not. But they're trying to gamify, as many aspects of this as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be, as it says, it's it's a play drop, but it's also a very fair launch. So the venture capitalists, insiders, no one's getting anything before other people. The only kind of exception is there is initially a little bit of liquidity that's going to QuickSwap. So it's not a lot. It's paired with about $2,500 worth of ghosts for each of the Alchemica. So as an example, it would be 2,500 ghosts, so about $5,000 worth of ghost, and then there'll be a similar amount of KEK. And then what you've said and what Coder Dan and the big brains are thinking is it's going to 10x kind of instantly from there, and we're probably likely going to see someone's just going to come in there and just buy it all up. So what are your thoughts there? What's our plan? Are we going to be buying?
That's a really small amount of liquidity. And when you consider how invested some of these people actually are, even just individuals in this game, throwing $20,000 at something on day one, it's going to happen instantly. So this is going to get front run by bots. There's no doubt about that. All the liquidity is going to get drained. So in my view, I think it's actually a golden opportunity for anyone who actually collects Alchemica to actually deposit it into these pools and market sell it to stack some ghosts in that first week. They are going to be coming in, I think you mentioned, Seb, on day 7 with some more liquidity. So Pixelcraft's going to come in with another $80,000 worth, assuming a $2 price of ghost, which might be more by then. But that's going to add some liquidity, but that's a long period of time, 7 days later. So I'd be really careful buying anything. After those first few minutes, because the price is going to rise exponentially, and you're probably going to be paying overs. But one whale will come in and buy this, or it's going to get front run by a guild with bots behind them.
Yeah.
So I think selling, farming as much as you can and selling in that first week is probably going to be quite lucrative in terms of ghost value. But if you really want to start making your installations as quickly as possible, then you're going to need that as well. So they don't have the GAX running yet, so the decentralized exchange. So you can't start farming those glitter rewards to speed up your installations yet until the actual GAX is live. But it sounds like that's a month or so away. So really this first sort of 3 or 4 weeks is going to be about collecting as much Alchemica off the ground as you can and working out whether you want to stack it to be an LP to earn glitter later on, or maybe sell it for ghost. I don't think there's a bad strategy though either way. But I don't think I'd be buying much on the open market initially, because I'd want to see where these prices settle down first.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of worked out that for KEK, as an example, that the initial price was going to be about 1.1 cents or 1.1 cent for 1 KEK.
Yeah.
And the expectation was an instant 10x. Now, for anyone that's new and thinks that, as soon as the liquidity is added to QuickSwap, you can just get in there and add a huge amount of gas and try and get some. And just be super aware of how unlikely that is to happen. It's probably not even worth doing it. But if you want to do it for a bit of fun, by all means do it. However, just be aware that you shouldn't have high slippage. Otherwise, you're probably going to, put in like $100 or something, and you're going to overpay for it maybe 10, 20 times or more instantly off just straight out of the gate.
I don't think they're even going to announce when these pools go live. I think it'll be stealth, just so people can't try and sort of game this so much. And by the time you find out about it, the liquidity is going to be gone. There's just no doubt in my mind, unless some whale comes in and really deposits a heap of ghost because they want that to be an LP on day one, which I guess is possible. So I would just avoid it in the first 10 minutes and see where it's at from there. And we're all going to be so busy just running around farming anyway. Yeah. So we might not even notice for hours that this is live. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think for me personally, I think the play is just to get as much Alchemica as you can and either sit on it, or you might be able to trade some in for some OG tiles. There's going to be 2 things that we can buy early on. So there's these tiles, which are basically just an aesthetic thing that you can put over your plot of land. And there's going to be a limited supply of these. So they're essentially unlimited until a period of time. So we don't know exactly how many there will be, but people will be probably wanting to buy these because they're going to have that OG status to them. And also there is a single installation that you will be able to purchase as well, which they just dropped some info about today. It's called the Golden Altar. So that looks pretty cool. We did some rough maths on the back of the old cocktail napkin, didn't we, Seb? And I think we worked out that it's going to cost, assuming a 10x in price of all of the Alchemica, around about $260 worth to buy one of these altars. But like, that's very speculative. It could sort of 10x from there. Who knows? I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. That's going to take a while potentially to farm all that. So I'm not sure. It'd be really interesting. Maybe whoever gets to sweep these pools as soon as they launch, perhaps they'll go and mint a bunch of these altars. I don't know. So that's going to be interesting. But it is cool that there is something that we can do on top of just running around collecting the Alchemica early on.
Yeah, and with those altars, that they don't give you anything special other than just aesthetically they are gold. They're the same as a standard altar. It's just you've got something that's like, you were one of the original people, and you have to mint it by the 30th of April. I'm sure there'd be an exact kind of cutoff time, but it's a limited release, and there isn't like a max number. It's just time limited. So if on the 1st of May you want to try and mint it, it's not going to happen, I'm afraid. So
well, that's good to know that it doesn't have any extra in-game value. It's just an aesthetic collectible type thing, which is still awesome. But I mean, you have a look at the premium that we thought people were going to be paying for unopened haunts, for H1 haunts, and you have a look at the prices now. They've plummeted. So the game side mechanics of it is proving that there's an awful lot of value in certain aspects of different things rather than the collectability side. So I found that really interesting. It's actually, I bought an unopened H1 months and months ago, and now I'm underwater, which I really didn't expect to see happen. But I think it's because an unopened haunt has no in-game utility.
No, it doesn't. I'm not saying, we're not saying open all of your portals, but as soon as you open them, then you start to be able to pet your Gotchi, get experience points, and all those things are actually, they're like kind of in-game currencies, in that your Gotchi will do better with more kinship and more experience. So, I guess that's very good, because we want more Gotchis there for sure. But then again, having, as soon as I guess there's maybe like less than 100 unopened portals, maybe the price rockets up and maybe you're back.
That's
back
when it gets
above water.
That collectability sort of premium, I think, will start to come in. But at the moment, a lot of people had the same idea. So I think there's a few thousand unopened H1 portals still, I think. So
really,
I think it's quite a lot. So I think it might take a long time before you get your money back if you were playing that game. I'm still not going to sell mine. I'm just going to moonbag it and see what happens. But it is really cool to see that the actual gaming elements are starting to hold sway over the just sort of speculative side of collectibles and NFTs that we see everywhere else, to be honest. So that was really interesting. One other little quick point, Seb, that I didn't make onto my slides that you'll no doubt be able to see, that we're going to use the AM Ghost within the Gotchiverse for staking and all of that sort of stuff to earn friends. They were just about to upgrade the contracts to do that, and Aave kind of pulled the rug on them. Kind of pulled the rug on them in a sense, because they've just released version 3, which is basically some changes to the contracts. So they're just holding back before they do anything with AM Ghost, and they're focusing pretty much on the alpha launch at the moment. So that was one interesting thing to come out. But another big thing that's changed since the Gotchiverse Bible Chapter 3 came out, there was talk about a lot of the guild elements. I think we talked about this in our last pod, Seb. Yep. And shortly after that, Coda Dan sort of came up with a new idea, which he hadn't really spoken too much in depth about, but he dropped it the hangout before last. It's gained more traction, and it sounds like there could well be a change to what was actually in that Bible with something completely different. So there was this concept of a bid to earn auction using glitter, and the guilds would have to fight for the right to own a wearable, and then they could use that for their group Alchemica channeling. But that concept's probably going to be turfed out in favor of this one, where basically guilds are it's not going to be limited to how many guilds can have the same wearable. So, for instance, you could have 10 guilds all with the same fireball wearable, and every week there would be a leaderboard where they compete, and the guild that has spent the most glitter within the game over that period of time would have the right to do the Alchemica channeling in that next week. So I think it's really clever. It's going to drive basically guilds to be really active, and it sort of gamifies it completely. So a small guild, a smaller fireball guild, they might stack their glitter tokens for 2 months, and then in the 1 week spend it all, so they can try and get to the top of the leaderboard in that 1 week, and then sort of have the guild alchemica channeling happening. So it evens out the playing field a lot more, and it stops really powerful guilds just bidding anything to get these wearables, and it also protects guilds where, I think we use the example of the Portal Mage DAO. Everyone knows what wearables they're going to want, so it sort of protects them from being smashed by other guilds that are just going to try and outbid them, that might just have more capital behind them. And it's not the fairest way to go. But if they really coordinate as a guild, they could go, right, this week we're really going to hit it. We're going to spend a lot of glitter upgrading our area and spending it in game and try and get to the leaderboard that week. So really clever concept. I think there's a lot of support for it, and I wouldn't be surprised if that gets voted through, if it actually goes to voting.
Okay, no, sounds a lot fairer. Otherwise,
yep.
Yeah, I don't think that we were ever going to get any insignia, to be perfectly honest. Any wearables?
Yeah, we're probably not big enough. So one thing that was also interesting that Coder Dan, sorry, Seb, mentioned that they're trying to make it up to the community to build out the environment. So there's going to be lots of tools for crafting areas. I'm guessing, there'll be some sort of drag and drop elements where suddenly you can line your streets with certain trees or change the street lights and all that sort of stuff. And all of that drives the sort of the glitter economy and provides some utility for that glitter token as well. So that's really cool. It's going to be an open world that we can sort of bend to our own will. And each district over time is probably going to be a DAO as well. So there might be a district allocation of glitter that is spent for everyone in that DAO. So that's really interesting as well.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, geez, I'm so excited. Yeah, fantastic. Now, for anyone that's jumping in, I would probably assume that it's going to be a little bit buggy at first, which it's an alpha release. And if you're not familiar with the gaming terms, you basically have alpha, which is super early stages. You expect things to break. And then you have beta, and it gets a little bit better, and then it kind of moves to the point where you have an actual kind of full release. And from a full release, then there are patches, which are just software code upgrades that are added to improve bugs. So just remember that, as far as I'm aware, this is the first land metaverse launching with gameplay ever. Am I mistaken? Because I know Axie hasn't launched their land yet, and they've been working on it for a few years.
There's is it World Wide Web 3? I think that's another thing on Polygon that is does have some land and some metaverse, and I have seen that the land in that game's been getting bought up by some really big NFT whales like Pranksy and that in the last week or so, which I think in a way kind of makes me encouraged, because the Gotchi Vault, the Gotchiverse and all of the Gotchi assets, they're sort of all in game, or they're all within the one platform. They're not available on OpenSea generally. So they're still off the radar. In 2 weeks' time, this game's going to launch, and people will be like, "Oh wow, this is cool. This is fun. I'm actually enjoying this. I'm DeFi farming by running around." If they can nail that, suddenly this might register on some of these other bigger players in the NFT space. So keep in mind, a lot of these guys have just been minted into multimillionaires by this ApeCoin drop. So money's going to start slushing around, and I would not be at all surprised if some of it comes towards the Gotchiverse, because there's still a lot of upside there, I believe. If you have a look at the markets for the land itself, it's reasonably depressed, but it's held pretty steady. But it certainly hasn't pumped like some other stuff. So you could probably sell one block of land in some of these other games that have blown up and buy a whole heap in the Gotchiverse. So some people are going to start looking at that angle of how they can rotate their profits into other areas that still have upside.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Gerry, there are some changed traits in the Gotchiverse. Is that what you'd heard on the grapevine?
Yeah, there is some pretty significant ones. So it all went through on Snapshot, and overwhelmingly people voted this in. But basically, we're doing away with a couple of traits that I think most people expected to be there. So one was the speed of the Gotchi, and the other one was its carrying capacity. So basically, it was proposed that is not going to be particularly fun for people having a really slow gotchi and having other ones just flying around, speeding past them. I can imagine how frustrating it'd be if you're running towards a nice big piece of keck and someone just scoops in because they can run 5 times faster than you, or you've picked one up and now your carrying capacity is so low you can't get all of it that's there. So they've basically removed that. And I guess you have to have a look at the actual trait mappings in more detail to really understand it. But basically every trait that is in there, it's kind of like a yin and a yang. It balances out. If you're really great at one thing, you're not so good at the other. And clearly the people that have proposed this are really into their gaming, their role playing gaming, and they've understood all of these dynamics. And so I think that's really, really encouraging that we've got a lot of big brains in the community that are trying to maximize the actual fun elements of the game. So anyway, that was worth noting. That's gone through. And yeah, I guess it just means that in certain areas, running around and carrying things, everyone's going to be the same.
Okay. That certainly makes it fairer because...
Yeah, definitely. Well, the other thing I should mention, Seb, just on traits, while we're on that subject, is there isn't essentially any traits active in this first month. Okay. Every gotcha is the same. You can run and carry things as fast, and it's mostly because the traits actually relate to the in-game combat style things of it, and that's just not going to be part of the initial launch. Okay. It's more going to be Pac-Man style, run around, get as much alchemy as you can, and you might be able to craft a couple of things like we mentioned earlier.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, I think we'll end it there, but we'll have another one out soon, probably tomorrow. So we'll get this podcast out, and then part 2 will basically come out super, super quickly, just to keep the flow there, but to not have a really long podcast. So thanks for all the alpha, Gerry.
My pleasure.
Thanks for doing all the research. And, and I hope you enjoyed that, listeners. We'll see you in the next one in a day or so. Cheers.